Yo, everybody, thank you for being here. It is now 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here in Columbus, Ohio. My name is Mike. I go by DJ Access, and you are watching the Pioneer XDJ-XZ question and answer session. Thank you so much for being here. If you're here live, shout out Carlin, shout out Reckless, shout out Davey. I know we got someone else in here. Let's see. Cass, shout out Cass. So thank you guys for being here. I know you got great questions coming up. Yeah, we do this every Wednesday. This is technically the first one. I did one on Saturday and realized that this is something I want to do weekly. So 6:30 on Wednesdays. The pre-show is going to start at 6, and I'm just going to pick a topic, and I'll come up with some talking points, and then people can just ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. If we need the help of Google, or if I need to phone a friend, we can do that. Like I said, today we are talking about the Pioneer XDJ-XZ. Right now you are looking at the Pioneer XDJ-XZ. This unit came out in December, and it was supporting Pioneer and Rekordbox flash drives. So you see I have my flash drive right here. It can support 2 flash drives, and one of your flash drives can actually record. We'll talk about that a little later. Right around February, they added Serato support, which was huge. This is the first mixer in a long time that supports Rekordbox and Serato. For someone like me who loves Serato, that's my go-to performance platform, but I also have Rekordbox in case I need to play on flash drives. So having a unit like this that does both, wow. I've been waiting for this a long time, and the fact that it does flash drives and DVS is just incredible, and we'll talk about that. There are some fantastic reviews on YouTube on this unit, both on the Pioneer side and on the Serato side. I've watched all of them. Some of them I watched multiple times, and I will be leaving them in the description, and actually I'll add them to chat right now. But there's some great videos that Mojax and the guys over at Crossfader, Jamie Hartley, have done, and they break down the whole unit. They go through the whole spec sheet, they go through every button, and they do an awesome job with the review. What I want to do is, for the DJ that doesn't want to watch all those reviews, I want to consolidate all of that, time that I've watched into a single question and answer stream. So I basically just cut out all the things that I think a DJ would want to know about the unit. And we're going to get started. If I don't see any questions at this point, I do not see any questions, so we're just going to roll right into what I have. So who is the target customer? Who's Pioneer trying to target with this unit? And I think it's mainly for DJs who want a Nexus setup at home. Carlin, perfect example. Carlin plays at Ducento on Friday and Saturday nights. There's a lot of DJs there. They use Rekordbox. He can plug in his flash drive. He's got 2 large size platters. He's got 4 decks. And he can roll, he can do his thing, he can practice at home, and then when he goes and he does events at big arenas, massive nightclubs, he's familiar with the platform, he's familiar with the jog wheels, he's familiar with how to use the flash drive, the screens, except he'll have 2 of them, right, or 4 of them if he's rocking 4 decks. And I think that's the main thing. This is a third of the price of the Nexus 2 setup. So Nexus 2 setup could run you anywhere from, up to $7,000. And I think this is $2,200 when I got it. So I don't know if the price has gone down or up, but $2,200 is about what this will run in the US. And I think it's for people who throw parties and who maybe want a unit for small bars and nightclubs. Small bars and small nightclubs. If you have a large or medium-sized nightclub, you got to go with the full Nexus 2 setup, especially if you're bringing in regional and national acts. That's going to be on their rider, so you have to have those. But if you own a small bar and you want something, you have people who come in through using Serato, you have 6 people who come in using Rekordbox. This is a great unit for that. And again, if you host parties, this is a great unit for that because you can cater to a lot of DJs. You have 2 USB slots, so switchovers are really easy, and people should be familiar with Pioneer. It's the industry standard. As far as mobile DJs, yes, if the weight doesn't bother you, it's about 28 pounds, so it's definitely not light. Especially, mobile DJs like to throw cases on stuff. So if you throw a nice heavy-duty case on this, that's a big lift. So if the weight doesn't bother you, again, 28 pounds just by itself, no case. then I think it is great for mobile DJs. There's some features that I'll talk about that make it great for mobile DJs. So the EQ on the master channel is awesome. I don't see a lot of mixers with that, and it's really helpful, especially for me over here in my practice space. I don't want to bug my neighbors, right? But I want it to sound good. So right here, I can just turn down the lows. I don't have to worry about doing it on the channels. It does it through the master channel. That's awesome. Other thing, we have talk over. We have feedback reducer. Feedback is when you might be standing in front of a speaker and you're using a microphone. The microphone points at the speaker. Your sound gets into a feedback loop, and that's when you hear "ee," and then you got to fix that. So this is a reducer. It detects when it's getting into a feedback loop, and then they have two settings. You can have a light feedback reducer or heavy. And I haven't used it yet because I haven't brought this to a live gig. But again, Mojax has a video, and the link goes right to where he talks about the feedback reducer, since I wasn't able to test that myself, but I trust Mojax from DJ City. Next question, I'm just going to get right to it. Is this the best controller on the market right now in 2020, in May 2020, almost June 2020? Yes. In my opinion, based on all the features that this thing has, Serato and Rekordbox, not a whole lot of controllers do that, especially new controllers. The fact that you have the large size jog wheels and pads, which in my opinion makes it better than the CDJ-2000 Nexus 2. The pads are so much better than the Q points. Those things are not meant to be beaten on, and I've seen multiple units go bad as far as Q points. And for those of you who know me, I love my Q points. So that was a big thing to me. So you have your large size pads, you have your pads, you have 4 channels. The only thing is one USB, actually 2 USBs can only do the 2 channels, right? So if you want to do 4-deck mixing, you will have to get either another CDJ, another turntable, another media player to use those channels. If you're using Serato and Rekordbox with your laptop, you have access to all 4. The 2-channel thing is only for your flash drives. So again, 4 channels. The value, I said it before, 1/3 of the cost of the Nexus 2 setups. The fact that it's industry standard, and you have a built-in USB backup. I'm a Serato DJ, right? So if I was a mobile DJ, I'm doing Serato, something happens to my laptop. I already have my USB plugged in. I type in some things, and I have music going right away. I have my library. If I had to guess, I'm guessing the CDJ-3000 will look a lot like this side of the platter here. Obviously, you'll have a screen. You'll have your pads, you'll have your platter. I imagine it'll be pretty large, and we'll see how that goes with Pioneer. Now, is it my favorite controller on the market? Actually, no. The DDJ-1000 SRT by Pioneer is my favorite controller on the market right now. And the reason being is because Serato, it's a really weird reason. So Serato makes you choose whether your pads are all loops. If you're in the second pad mode, it's beat loop on here, it's actually auto loop on Serato. All of your pads will either be auto loops, or you can set it so that 4 of them, the bottom 4, do beat jump. Well, I like having all 8 of my loops ready, and the SRT actually has a beat loop built in. There's dedicated buttons to beat loop, so I don't have to choose between, do I want all my loops or do I want beat loop? It's here. I have all my loops. I have beat loop. That's pretty much the main reason why it's my favorite. Otherwise, they're very, very similar. I can actually go grab it right now. Give me 2 seconds. So if you want to get a closer look at the differences, you can watch this on YouTube later and then pause the video. But you see a little bit smaller for the SRT, a little bit less function, and a lot lighter. But basically very, very, very close to the same. I want to talk about the screen. So the screen's a big part of this, right? In my opinion, the screen is good. I think that the zoom level is too shallow. So what do I mean by zoom level? I'm not sure if you guys can see this. But right now I'm twisting the knob to adjust the zoom level. I like to be able to really, really get in there. Technically, I really like my waveforms vertical. That's not a big deal. But I do really like to be able to zoom in and out to see where my waveforms are, so I can be more precise with my scratching. You have a screen here, and then on both of the decks, I rarely look at the decks screen. The information on there is like, you have the time, so it's elapsed or remaining. You have your cue line, so you can see where you're going. I'm going to talk about the cue lines a little bit later. And you have your waveform. It's very, very zoomed out, so it's not useful to me. And then you have your basic things like, you know, how the pitch and your key and stuff like that. But again, for this screen here, I'd like the zoom level to be able to zoom in a little bit more. It's great for beat matching and cue location. On the screen, I have full waveforms of each track at the bottom, and then I have my zoomed in version here. I'm going to go a little bit further in the track so you guys can see that a little bit. And then it's really good for beat matching, easy to see what I'm doing there. And then I know where my cues are within the song by looking at the bottom portion. And I really like that. Is it my favorite screen? No, I like the rain screen better. It's a little bit faster. The zoom level's higher, and it really serves a different purpose. It's more of like an auxiliary screen, where this is like the main dish. It's the whole thing. Oh, how is the controller when it comes to linking with other CDJs or instruments? Is that what that says? Oh, when it comes to linking other CDJ NX2s, super, 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 super easy. So for those of you who've linked CDJs before, you know you want to use an Ethernet hub and then Ethernet cables, and that's how everything gets. That's how the information is transferred between the players, and then you just need, you know, your basic RCA digital cable to go from the CDJ into the back of the mixer. That's a great question. It's super easy. I think if anyone's ever set up CDJs before in their life, they'll have no problem adding this, because this is basically your NX2 mixer minus a couple features, and I mean a couple. And then you have your CDJ 2000s, and this is actually adding features. So to just set a CDJ NX2 here, grab the Ethernet into the hub. The hub will go into the mixer, and then you'll have another cord running from the hub over to the other CDJ. You'll plug those in to get power, and then you'll run your audio cable, either digital or RCA, into the back of the mixer, and boom, you're ready to go, and everything should feel like, you know, standard 4 decks. Great question. Thank you so much. That was Carlin. And then Reckless had a question, is the waveform blue or RBG? I can't really see it. Yes. So it is RGB. So you can see full color waveforms. It looks exactly like it would on your Serato screen. So it does look like Serato. It's not. When you plug in Rekordbox, I imagine, I haven't plugged in Rekordbox yet. I could probably do that a little bit later. If you're using Rekordbox, it has a very similar look to what Rekordbox looks like, whereas if you plug in Serato, it looks like Serato. And the way you can tell it what you're plugging in is by hitting that link button and then selecting load 1 or 2, and you have it plugged into your computer running Serato. Same thing if you're running Rekordbox. You just hit the Rekordbox button instead of the link button. Great questions. Thank you guys, Reckless and Carlin. Let's talk about the pads a little bit. How do they feel? Are they the best pads I've ever used? No, but are they industry standard pads, and 99% of DJs are going to feel comfortable on them? Yes. They feel good. They got a nice bounce to them. For performing, I prefer machine pads. To me, are the best. But again, that's a unit dedicated to finger drumming, dedicated to pads. These are similar, but not quite there. If you are not like a dedicated finger drummer, you're going to love these pads. Period. End of story. If you are a dedicated finger drummer, you may not. It's very similar to other Pioneer pads. So if you have used those, you may feel right at home. And if you don't, maybe hop over to Guitar Center, test them out, and do some of that. But again, 99% of DJs are going to feel fine on these pads. But if you are a finger drummer, if you've used Machine before, you might find it a little bit lacking, and it's in a minuscule amount. But the pads, you have hot cue, which is what it's called on the unit, as well as Serato. Now, for the rest of them, they get a little bit tricky. So on the unit, it says beat loop, and that equals auto loop in Serato. So for, if you want an 8-bar loop and you hit this button, that's beat loop, auto loop. Those are the same things. The next button is slip loop. That is roll in Serato. So you'll see slip loop on the unit, and then that will actually be roll. This is another reason why the SRT is probably beats it out as my favorite, because again, Serato's my go-to program. So even just having to remember what pads do what, gives the SRT a little bit of edge in my mind. So again, slip loop is actually roll. Roll, for those of you who don't know, is like a loop, but it continues the track underneath the loop. So if I hit, actually I really want to avoid copyright, so I'm not going to demonstrate that. But if you type into YouTube like how to do a roll or what a roll is, it's very, very simple. Again, it's just an auto loop. You're going to hear the loop, and then when you release the button, this track will have played underneath it, and it'll jump to where you would have been. Very cool effect if you've not used it before. And then, so those are and then beat jump is actually your sampler.
This is DJ Access.
So it says beat jump on the unit, but it's actually the sampler. And I'm going to talk about the sampler a little bit later because there's actually not a dedicated sampler knob on this, and I use the sampler a lot. And so you'd actually have to go into Serato, use your mouse, and adjust the volume if you needed to on the fly. Another reason why the SRT beats this out as my favorite. Not the best, but my favorite. As far as your secondary pad modes, if you hit Shift and Hotkey, you will get Flip. Serato Flip is an expansion. It basically lets you create your own remixes on the fly by picking out your favorite parts of the track and then reorganizing them. So that's how you get to that. Shift Hotkey is Flip. Shift Beat Loop is the slicer. Slicer breaks down a certain amount of bars into segments, and you can jump around to each segment with each pad. So, let's say you broke it down into 8 beats. This would be beat 1, beat 2, beat 3. So you'd have kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, and then maybe like your fill into the next bar. Shift plus slip loop. Shift plus slip loop, the third button, is the loop slicer. Loop slicer. Same thing. And you're going to take a loop, and then you're going to slice it down into pieces, and you can jump between the different pieces as the track plays underneath. Shift plus beat jump, which is our sampler. Shift plus beat jump is pitch play. So if you've used, say you have an acapella of some sort, and you have cue points on it, you can actually pitch up and down each cue point. I haven't used it very much, but it is a very cool feature. I would just prefer to make a track and then make the cue points myself rather than having to rely on Serato's version of that. But if you use pitch play, it's just shift and beat jump. I think I saw a question. What are the buttons to the right of the EQ knobs and to the left of the right platter? So here are the EQ knobs. Oh, so if I'm right here, these are your effects. So if you've never used a Nexus 900 mixer, this is very, 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 very close. You're going to, I'll just read off some of the effects you have. Delay, echo, ping pong, spiral, reverb, transformer, filter, flanger, phaser, pitch, slip roll, vinyl break, and helix. Some of those I've never used before. My go-tos are echo, delay, spiral, reverb, transformer, and sometimes roll. And the rest I don't really use. Yep, that's accurate. And then moving down, you have your selector, so which channel your effect is going on. You have your parameter knob, or they call it time, and then your level or depth knob, which is how much the effect comes in. And then you also have the X pad, the BFX X pad, and this will let you choose if you want your spiral effect or echo effect, since everyone knows what echo is, your echo effect to be at a quarter note. You can actually just tap this and hit echo, and you're good. Same thing if you want to move it to half note. And then this is also a slider, so you can actually slide your finger across this and get different pitching effects depending on what effects you're using. If you've never used a 900 Nexus before, or even if you have, it's worth it just to take an acapella track, a simple acapella track, go through each effects on here, each effect, and see what it does to the acapella. So it's hard to find out what an effect is doing with a bunch of beats going on, with a bunch of percussion, all that. So if you just actually grab an acapella and then start to mess with it, it makes it a lot easier to tell what's going on. Great question. Thank you so much. What was that? That was Davey. Thank you, Davey. And then comparing this to the RX2, the cheaper option by about $607, why would you go with this one over the RX2? Basically has almost the same features. That is a great question, Carlin, because I actually had the RX2 before this, and I sold that to DJ Corrupt so I could replace it with this. And the answer is If you want an RX2 is going to be great. It's so good. You like you're saying, it's the cheaper option. I think when you want to upgrade from the RX2 is going to be like club equipment. You'll recognize some of the things, you'll recognize it. But if you actually want to play on something that feels like it, not that kind of acts like it, but actually feels like it, this is your controller. So if you're just doing gigs by yourself, you go out, you take 2 speakers, you rock parties, RX2 is great for you. If you're looking to get into nightclubs and be comfortable on nightclub setups or larger setups or performance setups, this is probably going to be the mixer for you. The RX2 is great. Got the screen. It's a little bit smaller platters. You have your pads. And also, if you're on Serato, obviously you have to get this one because the RX2 is a record box only. So loved my little RX2. Definitely can work for DJs, but this is going to be for the big boys, for people who want to do the nightclubs, the big festivals, who want to play on flash drives, who want Serato and record box, and just for it to look and feel like it would in the club. Great question, Carlin. Thank you. I wanted to bring that up, and then I forgot to add it to my notes. I want to talk about some positives. The fader, for me, being a scratch DJ, the fader feels great. No adjustments. And I don't even think you can make adjustments to the fader. I mean, obviously you can do, you can select how the crossfader behaves, whether it's sharp or smooth. But as far as tension, I don't think they allow you to adjust that. I could be wrong, but 99% sure. And feels great, right? So I can do some scratching here, just so you know. So there are differences between the Rain, which is what I'm probably best at scratching on, than this. But as far as, give me 5 minutes, this will feel really good. And I can do I'd say 90% of the scratches that I could do on my Rain, which is my go-to performance mixer. I love the Master EQ channel, the Master Channel EQ. We talked about that earlier. Just being able to take out the lows or increase the mids and the highs on the Master Channel is something that really sets this mixer apart, and it is one of those things that it's big wow factor for that Master Channel EQ. I really hope that more mixers add that. That's a great feature. Sound quality is excellent. It's Pioneer. It's over $2,000 mixer. The soundboard sounds great. No, I'm not the expert when it comes to sound quality, but everyone on YouTube who I've watched says that sound quality is great, so I'll trust them and my ear as well. Build quality is great. Again, Pioneer. It's heavy. It's meant to be used in a professional setting. Feels great. If you've ever used Pioneer gear, you know what the build quality is. It is built better than the SRT. That is a win for this. It is built better than the SRT. Just as far as the build quality. Dub, echo, and space are both post faders. So what does that mean? If I put some space on here, that's an effect on this side. You have your sound color effects as well as your beat effects. So again, if you're an effects person, if you mix techno, if you mix tech house, you're going to love these effects sections. So if I'm running this and I add the space, what post fader means is if I take it out, you see how you still hear the echo? That is what post fader means. So all the effects are post fader as long as you have the correct thing selected on here, and then sound color is post fader. That's pretty important. Feedback reducer we talked about. Check out Mojax's DJ City video. It's in the chat, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's also in the description. Built-in recording, I talked about at the beginning of the video, just to be able to have, one USB, you're playing, and if you ever talked to me, and you tell me how good your set was because I was doing my other show, and you say, hey, man, I really rocked my set, but, oh, did you record? No, man, I didn't record. That is a conversation I have on a weekly basis when it's not or it's not a pandemic. So just be able to plug in a flash drive, hit record, and then you can even do track marks. So let's say you want to build it out into a mixtape. I don't know if people really do track markers on mixtapes anymore, but you can. So you mix the song, you hit track mark, boom. You hit next song, hit track mark. God, that's awesome. Wish more things would do that as well, just so people record their sets more, not only for people like me who want to hear them play, but for themselves so they can practice. I'll leave a link up in this area with a link to my why you should record your sets video. It's one of my best videos, not one of my most popular, but it's one of my best videos, and if I wish I could show that to everyone because it's so important. It'll help you out. IEC power is important. That's another up on the SRT. The SRT, if you don't know what IEC power is, the power cable that you see on most big name DJ equipment, there's no other way to explain it. Just Google IEC if you don't know what that means, but it's the most common for big name equipment, and it's interchangeable, right? So I carry an extra IEC in my DJ bag just because there's so many things that use it. If you're plugging into the back of a powered speaker, it's probably IEC. And just for the SRT, if you forget to put that back in your box or whatever it is, or you let someone borrow it, and they don't give it back, or and you go into your bag, like you're kind of out of luck. That's a dedicated power adapter. The fact that this is an IEC, I have an extra one of those in my bag. Everybody has them. Even at like a small bar, like an ethylene tank, if you're from Columbus, typically if they have DJs, they'll have an IEC cable. It'll probably be dusty as hell, but they'll have an IEC cable in like their back area or under the DJ booth or behind, wherever there's dust, there's usually an IEC cable. That's a good rule. Let's see. Did we have another question? Yes, we did. Does the RX2 and the XZ have the same effects? No. The XZ is going to have far more effects. I don't even know if the RX2 had color effects. I can't remember. I'm going to Google real quick. Okay, so the RX2 has 4 sound color effects. So I think they did dub echo, noise, crush, and filter, if I had to guess. So they only have 4. This has 6 sound color effects. And those are like your quick and easy effects. And then on the other side, it looks like it has about half of the effects. So for someone like me, that's probably okay, because they probably kept all the ones that I use. And then I imagine they got rid of some of the other ones. Can I zoom in and see which ones they have? Yeah, pitch, roll, flanger, filter. Can't see what that is. Spiral, echo, delay. So most of the ones that people will use are on the RX2. There's some extra special ones on this. And then you do not get the X pad on the RX2. Looks like everything else is the same. Yep, you get your tap. You'll tell it where to go. And then you can change the beats via buttons, not the X pad. So have the same effects. Okay, so that answers that question. No, they do not have the same effects. Some of the effects overlap, but the XZ is going to have more effects, 2 additional sound color effects, and about 5 or 6 more of the beat effects. Thank you for that question, Carlin. Keep them coming, guys. I think I'm almost through my notes. Okay, we did talk about that. So yeah, I just want to reiterate again. You can do 4 decks with Serato. 4 decks, 2 platters, and then the way you do that is you'll double press shift, and I don't necessarily like that because if you didn't know what I just told you, if you didn't know double click shift changes to deck 4, that could really mess you up because you could accidentally hit it twice, and then now instead of deck 2, the one you think you're playing, now you're manipulating deck 4. So that's a really, really, really good thing to know. Make sure you know that double tapping shift if you're on Rekordbox or Serato using a laptop is going to get you to go to deck 4 and then deck 3 over here. So, concerns now. No 4-deck USB functionality with USB. Talked about that already. A lot of people have issues with that. I've been DJing a long time. I've used 3 and 4 decks before. I think if you're mixing techno or whatever, that's cool. Most DJs aren't going to need 4 decks. I've never understood why that was such a big issue, but people are really mad that you can't have 4 decks from a USB. I don't think that's a big deal. No dedicated aux out volume. So there is RCA, auxiliary outs, on the back of this unit. So you can send RCAs out. However, you do not have a dedicated volume control. You have a master level, which is where you'll do your XLRs and your RCAs. That's the auxiliary. So you have a master level, which control both of those, and you have a booth level, which controls your quarter-inch cables, your guitar cables. And I would have liked to have an auxiliary output knob or a volume control, but whatever. It's not a huge deal. No sampler volume knob. We talked about that. Again, I would love to have it. Not a really big deal for most DJs. No saved loops on your pads unless you MIDI map. So typically in Serato, your secondary for your auto loop is your saved loops or your saved loops. So if I've done my homework on a track and I have, a few loops set up, I can jump around with those within the second pad mode. The secondary function of the second pad mode. So I'd hit shift beat loop and then I would get to my my saved loops, and then I could go manipulate from there. That is not on here. You would have to MIDI map it, and because MIDI overwrites what it does for the pad mode, I think that's not something you'd want to do. So you do, in my opinion, lose saved loops on your pad. Again, you can MIDI map this. I did some MIDI mapping myself within the loop section, and then the memory to add my downbeats. So if I need to quantize, but yeah, no saved loops unless you MIDI map them yourself, and I don't know where you would put those. We talked about the weight, 28 pounds, not including a case. No second group of pad modes. There are a second group of pad modes. They're just not the ones that I would have wanted. And then only one USB input. Oh, so if you're using Serato and Rekordbox and you have a USB out, there's only one USB out to laptop. So to do a changeover, where other ones there's two, right? The SRT even has two. And you could just plug in two laptops, select which one is which, and boom, you're ready to go. You only have one here. So what you'll want to do is use a USB, play a song, unplug laptop 1, replug in laptop 2, and hopefully by the end of that process, you're ready to mix in with your laptop. If not, pull another song from the USB and then go from there. So again, only one USB input for changing DJs with laptops. There's two USB inputs for USB changeovers, super easy. The vinyl line won't go past the beginning of the song. So for scratch DJs, this is important. If you're trying to beat juggle or scratch and you're at the beginning of the song and you do a backspin, the indicator, this little line here, that indicates where you are on the track will not go before the beginning of the track. Typically, if you're beat juggling a song, that first kick is something you would juggle, right? So if I'm juggling, I pull back far, I won't see how far I've pulled back. If you don't beat juggle, this is not a big deal at all. If you do beat juggle a little bit, still probably not a big deal at all. But if you're really trying to get in on this thing and do performances with beat juggling and that is something you have to consider. And chances are, if you are someone who's beat juggling, you either aren't using controllers as your main setup, or you already know about this. So that's nothing new for controllers. If you are a performance DJ and you want to beat juggle, I find that putting the jog adjust, so the tension on the platter, if you do it light, it's going to spin really easily. If you make it heavy, it's not going to spin as easily, right? So if I'm a DJ who uses backspins a lot, So if I end a lot of mixes by doing this, I probably want to have it more light than heavy. The way I actually use it in most functions, when I'm actually mixing, especially house or EDM, I leave it all the way heavy because that's going to give me the most control when I'm trying to pitch bend. If I'm performing, I like to go one notch to the right of 12 o'clock, so 1 o'clock on the jog adjust, 1 o'clock for performance, and then all the way over to the right heavy if I'm mixing house or EDM. Some things that are just good to know. So these aren't good or bad. These are just good to know things. Oh, sorry. Carlin had a question. If you want 4 decks, what do you recommend onto the system? XDJ 700, 1000 MK2, or 2000 Nexus? That's going to depend on your budget, man. Pioneer is very good at giving you entry-level, mid-level, professional, right? So if these are decks 3 and 4, Man, I don't use 4 decks a lot. So for me to invest now, if you want it for the look, if you want your show to look dope, and you want when your people are taking pictures of your event, and you want to have it look like, wow, these people are this is legit. This looks like a festival rig. Then yeah, go with the CDJ 2000 Nexus, obviously. But most people cannot afford $5,000 for 2 platters that they may or may not use, or the other DJs may not use. So yeah, go with the XDJ 700 if that's what you do. I mean, for a third and fourth deck, do you really need all the pads and everything like that? Couple cues, a play button, a decent platter. I don't see the need to purchase 4 decks. But if you do, then your budget's going to be the determining factor, and there's not much else. Hopefully that answered the question, Chris. 4 decks standalone, yeah. So you need whatever CDJ or XDJ that takes flash drives in order to get the third and fourth decks. Good question. Thank you very much. So again, we're back into good to know. Access your crossfader curve through the utility menu. For those of you who don't know what crossfader curve is, you can either have it smooth, so it'll be like a smooth blend.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, I can't even do that. That's one of the things I did not like about this mixer. You don't have the ability to change it. So you do have to go into your utilities menu on the screen. So if you hold menu down, you'll go into this utility menu, and then you can select how you want your crossfader to behave. I wish that was just a notch on the button, especially if you're switching DJs. That's one thing that I always have to switch to go in the utilities. Kind of annoying, but I get why they didn't put it on there. The call buttons will change your size of the loop. So if you're running a loop and you want to shorten or extend the loop, your call buttons up here, that's what those do. I do recommend to get used to the effects session. Again, spend a day, grab a few acapellas, and just use the effect until you can describe to someone who doesn't DJ what it does. And I'm going to say that again. Practice until you can explain what the effect does to someone else. And don't Google it and see what someone else says. Actually test that. Call up your friend and says, hey, I'm listening. I'm just trying to do something for DJ. I just need you to hear me out. I'm going to explain something to you. You tell me if it makes sense. And say, hey, when I do the echo, the sound is going to come in. When I hit the echo effect, it's going to repeat that sound for a determined amount. It might be 1 beat. It might be a half beat. It might be a quarter beat. And then it's going to keep going as it hears the sound. But if I pull out the music, that echo will continue on for as long as I have the level depth up. If I want the echo to go on longer, I'll take my level depth knob all further to the right. If I want it to fade out shorter, I'll move it to the left. And then I can select up here what my parameter is as far as beats. And you want to be able to do that for each effect that you use. Now, if you listen to an effect and you go, I'm never going to use that, that sounds weird, then don't worry about it. But get to know the effects section, because you don't want to be fumbling around and then press something wrong and then have it mess up your mix and not know how to fix it. Very important. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Davey. Appreciate that, man. And that's good for anything. And anything that you do that you want to learn, figure out how to explain it to a 5-year-old. Right? Whenever I go to the body shop or I go to get my car fixed, I have no problem saying to the guy, listen, I have a basic understanding of cars, but I want you to explain to me what you're doing to my car as if you were explaining it to a 5-year-old. And then they say something like, oh, your carburetor does this, and then it's injected. And no, like a 5-year-old. And then they'll go, oh, and then they'll explain to you what each thing does. And through that, I've actually learned how my car works, so I'm a little bit less of a simp when it comes to that type of thing. But again, find out, if you're trying to learn something, find out how to explain it to a 5-year-old. Cool. Or someone that doesn't DJ. If you're a fan of the sync button like I am, you master will turn off sync. So sync, and this is for Serato. If you have sync on, in order to turn it off, you hit master. Super easy, but it's not intuitive when you look at it. And then if you use multiple pages of your sampler, this is for Serato users. If you use multiple pages of your sampler, so that means, Serato gives you 4 banks. Sampler bank A, B, C, and D. If you're like me, you use all 4 banks. And in order to get to those banks, you hit beat jump, or to get to the sample, you hit beat jump, and then that's bank 1. So you actually have to find something to MIDI map in order to get to sampler pack B, C, and D. And I recommend the call buttons unless you're using those for loops, but I don't use those. I use, the loops down here. So I MIDI map my call buttons to be my parameter knobs, which will let me switch between sampler A, B, C, and D. And I'm I have my MIDI on Serato set to my other mixer, so I'm not going to demonstrate that now. But again, if you need me to demonstrate MIDI, let me know in the comments on YouTube or in the question, and I will definitely do a Q&A on that. Again, we're going to do these Q&As every Wednesday at 6:30. The pre-show is going to start at 6. That's p.m. and Eastern Standard Time. Hope you guys are enjoying what I've put together for this right now. Thank you so much for the questions. That is all the notes I have, so I'm going to take maybe like a minute or two to read any additional questions. I'll answer those, and then I'll do a quick 30-minute demo mix or however long people are hanging. Sorry? What's the benefit of getting a standalone controller versus a controller that is software dependent? With this controller, you get both, right? You get standalone and laptop, so that's really awesome. Benefits of standalone: ease of use. You don't get laptop face. So me personally, I have a lot of cue points. I have a lot of notes on my laptop screen. That's one of the reasons I like Serato better than I like this. There's not enough information for the way that I like to DJ. So. But that can be trouble, right? If you want to interact with the crowd, especially when you're streaming live and you're the only thing. I'm not in a club. I can look at girls. I can look at the visuals. I can look at the bartenders. Whatever. I can look at all this stuff. And when you're streaming online, I'm just looking at you. So you got to interact with the camera, right? You don't want to be over here looking like you're on Facebook. So that's one of the disadvantages of a laptop. Standalone. I would say it's industry standard. If you're not a big name, like you don't get to have a writer, and you're playing at a large nightclub or a festival, they're probably going to expect you to use a flash drive. If you use a laptop, you should be very, very, very comfortable plugging in, hooking up, troubleshooting. You're hooking up a laptop into CDJs, because sometimes the stage designer or the stage manager knows what's going on, and sometimes they don't. So, most stage managers know Rekordbox, but they may not know Serato, and vice versa. So just being able to plug in a flash drive anywhere around the world, that's kind of the industry standard of how DJs mix nowadays. So just standalone being industry standard, that's a benefit. Ease of use is, in my opinion, laptop. I don't like typing on a screen. They've made it easier. They have a keyboard on here now. Before, you had to use like the dial, and I didn't like that. For me, just hitting Control F and searching for a song in my library is just so much easier. Having, going through playlists with a scroll is way better than here. So if you have large playlists, going through on the scroll wheel is really annoying. If you know what you're playing, if you go into shows and you have your playlist already made, you're not going to deviate from that too much, or maybe you need to search for one or two songs, then that's not a big issue. But if you're someone like me who, kind of plays more loosey-goosey, I might have some things prepared, but I want to be able to go wherever I want, I think the laptop's better. I could probably do a whole video on standalone versus laptop, but there's probably videos already out there, and I think most of the nuances are pretty self-explanatory. But Chris, if there's something that I'm missing, let me know. Biggest thing for me was learning how to know your library on a flash drive versus having your laptop. Yeah, it's a big adjustment, especially if you have a lot of songs. I think DJing on a flash drive really makes you prepare your sets more, or prepare your library more. So maybe you don't have to prepare your sets, but the way you have your folders organized matters more on flash drives than it does on laptops, in my opinion. Yep, and that's one of the reasons you want this show. Good, yeah, I would highly recommend this Reckless. If you want to come over and mess with it, or please do. Carlin's got one as well, and I know he loves it. He bought it, returned it, and then bought it again. He liked it so much. So sorry if that's too much information, Carlin, but I think that's pretty funny, and I think it's good for people to hear that you went back out and got it. So. No, you won't regret it. Okay, I'm going to do some demo stuff here, guys. Thank you again for watching. I'm going to go for maybe like 10 minutes or so. I want to show off a couple of just different genres and things that this unit can do. Once again, if you're watching on YouTube and you made it this far, wow, like the video. I really hope you learned something. And again, if you watched this whole time, I guarantee you did. So like the video, comment, let me know what the next question and answer session topic should be, and subscribe to the channel if you want more tutorials, if you want more performances. What else do I do on there? Performances. Discussions. We have the Columbus DJ podcast that'll air tomorrow. We have a new time, Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. EST. Pre-show starts at 6:15 p.m. So pre-show for question and answer Wednesdays starts at 6. Pre-show for Columbus DJ podcast on Thursdays starts at 6:15. We have Leak and Ginsu tomorrow, Thursday, May 28th. Thursday, May 28th.